Tom Clark's 6M podcast is a Boink Studios production. And now, on with the show. Hey, what is up? Welcome to Tom Clark's 6M podcast. I'm your host, Tom Clark, and in this episode, I'm joined by co-host Phil Lindsey. How do you feel about rom-coms, kids? As we begin this show, I'm looking back in my mental index here of episodes to see if we've ever actually done a rom-com on this show. And I'll have to get back to you. In the meantime, as you listen to this, go explore the archives. Hopefully you've subscribed on all the major platforms, and we thank you for your patronage. However, back to the task at hand. I don't know that we've ever done them. And you know, sometimes they're fun. Sometimes they are, for lack of a better word, girly. And I don't want to be in any kind of hot water for that. But it's, you know, chick flick is what they've been described as also. Don't even know if I'm allowed to say that these days. I have no idea. So again, no offense, man. But, you know, romantic comedies, for some people, it's their thing. I've known guys that love romantic comedies. Makes no difference that it's, you know, primarily marketed to a largely female audience. You know, it's and listen, there's a formula. There's some formulas at play in this episode we're going to talk about here today for this film. But for a lot of these rom-coms, they are basically cookie cutter. It's like Christmas movies on Hallmark. You know, a lot of them are painful to watch, but it's tradition. And a lot of them are very cookie cutter and they're bad. But sometimes it's good to sit back and poke fun at stuff. The film we're talking about today is not bad, in my opinion. We're talking about Knocked Up. We recently covered a Seth Rogen project was super bad. So we're diving back into the Apatow verse, is what I'll call it. Maybe that's been coined by someone already. So don't quote me on that. But we're going to get into it in here today. Knocked Up is a 2007 American rom-com, as we said. This film is written, produced, and directed by Judd Apatow, starring an assorted cast of characters. It follows the repercussions of a drunken one-night stand, and boy, we're going to get into that, and about how these characters relate to each other, about how some of this movie is utterly unbelievable, but hilarious at the same time, and sweet when you least expect it. This was released in the United States June 1st, 2007. So we're almost to the anniversary of this film, which is nuts to me. 2007 doesn't sound like that long ago, but it kind of has been. Running time, 129 minutes. And we told you about who wrote, directed, and produced it, and distributed by Universal Pictures. The budget for this film was $25 million, a paltry sum in this day and age. This movie made $219.9 million, and that's the lowdown for Knocked Up. So, Phil, I know you're a big rom-com guy. I know they are your, don't laugh, I know they are your bread and butter. I know they are, if you could, that's how you'd make your living. You'd be writing about rom-coms. I know it's your favorite thing in the world. First of all, when's the last time you've seen this? And what sets this movie apart from rom-coms that you have seen, in your opinion?
I haven't seen it in a while. I think the thing that sets it apart is that it really has a lot of heart to it, and I feel like it's a realistic story, because it doesn't start with like this whirlwind love affair. It just gives us a realistic scenario where two people are kind of thrust together and they end up having to figure it out in a way of deciding, do they want to keep a kid, and everything that happens with pregnancy.
Yeah, there's no perfect people in this film, dude. Like everyone's kind of, they're not screwed up, but like they are, like you said,
Yeah,
it feels like like real life. No one's perfect here.
yeah, they're flawed. They're
Yeah.
realistic characters. I think that's what I enjoy about it. And that's not to say that we haven't seen rom coms that also center around what night stands and stuff like that um, are also realistic. But I think that what sets this apart is just adding, you know, the baby aspect to it and everything to it. I think it makes for a really entertaining movie.
Mm. Yeah, I agree. As I said, this movie's got heart to it, and it's sweet when you least expect it. As I said at the beginning of this, we've done Superbad. Are you like what you would call like a Seth Rogen fan, or like when his movies come out, do you like make a point to go see them? Do you wait till they're out on a streaming service, or what's that look like for you?
I enjoy his movies. I can't say that I rush out to the theater to see them, but
Mhm.
I usually enjoy them. What was the last? I'm trying to think. What was the last Seth Rogen movie that I was just like totally into? It's been a while. I
Mm.
can't even think of one.
I've seen a lot of his stuff, but like I think we made this comparison before between him and Will Ferrell, and maybe an Adam Sandler. There's certain guys that have sort of a pattern they fall into for whatever reason. I guess they take films or they're a part of projects that play to their strengths. And I think we've seen that a lot from Seth Rogen. I don't know the last time I've seen Seth Rogen out of his element, except for maybe the Green Hornet,
Yeah.
which we're
Oh,
not talking about that.
yeah. What a decision to make that movie. What a casting decision. Uh, yeah.
Ooh, yeah, jeez. Um, yeah, I'm like that. I don't rush out to see his films either. I think Pineapple Express is pretty funny. Um, what is it? Is it This Is the End that we talked about?
Yes.
Um,
Love this at the end.
it's a good film. It's insane in parts, but I think he's good in that. So he's got his moments. I mean, I do believe that just like Will Ferrell, there's moments where it's like, nah, it's too much, or it feels like it needs to be balanced. Um, I think if the project is balanced, it works. Why does it work so well for him in this movie versus other movies that he's done where maybe the formula wasn't so good?
I don't know. I just think it's such a good fit for his. I don't want to say his character archetype, but he has played the same character a few times, and this is kind of a perfect movie for his kind of character. Um, you also see Vince Vaughn play very similar characters, just like a
Mm,
lovable screw up that has to learn the lesson of how to love by the end of the movie.
very true. Yeah, Vince Vaughn's another one of those guys that does that. And gosh, there's another one. Ben Stiller is another guy that
Yeah,
tends to
Vince,
fall into a pattern.
he kind of falls into that pattern of being a very neurotic guy. Yeah, he's done it a few times. Yeah, and I think it's just it's an easy space to put a lot of comedians in, because you want to kind of buy into these guys as an underdog, even though they're celebrities and they have all these other things going for them. It's kind of harder to sell other leading men in that way because you're not gonna put somebody like Tom Cruise in this situation where he's just this lovable loser that gets the girl in the end. Like, no, this is Tom Cruise. Like, this is. He-
He's got the girl already.
yeah, I'm pretty sure he'll be fine.
Don't cry for Tom Cruise. He's going to be okay.
Yeah, yeah. Like, I don't know, like another example, like Matthew Behind McConaughey or somebody like that. Like, yeah, I'm pretty sure he doesn't have problems getting women.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, they got to put McConaughey in makeup and make him a despicable character before he's not the ladies' man. Like,
Yeah.
yeah. Um, yeah. A lot of these guys do fall into a pattern for sure. And that's something we've talked about here on the show, about more than one actor. I think it works here for him, honestly. I do think his brand of humor fits here. By the way, speaking of Seth, have you checked out Platonic on Apple TV?
I haven't.
It's actually not bad. It's a series. Has no business being a series. It should have just been a movie. Um, but I have that opinion with some of these streamers that are happening. I'm like, this could have just been a movie because the show's really about nothing. And I'm like, you could knock this out in an hour and 45 minutes. It would have been fine. But instead, we get like 8 1 hour episodes or whatever we're up to now with that show. So it's crazy. He's good in that. But again, Phil, he plays a character that's similar to things he's done in the past. Um, he does have one of the most recognizable voices and laughs that I've ever heard in my life. So he was Donkey Kong in the new Mario movie as well, which that movie caught so much flack. And kids, if you never gave it a chance, you should because it's a good movie. But that movie caught so much flack for a lot of different reasons. Of course, um, because the main casting, Star Lord as Mario is a white guy, whatever. But we're talking about an Italian cartoon character that was never real. But people lose their mind over ridiculous things. But supposedly the story with that is that they came to him and wanted him to do Donkey Kong. And Seth's like, I don't sound anything like Donkey Kong. I'm not a voice actor. And they're like, that's why we want you. We want you anyway. Just come on board. And I'm like, don't get mad at Seth. He told them up front he's not a voice guy. So I like that story quite a bit. Let's jump into this film and talk about, I'm going to flip it up on you a little bit here. Talk about the plot, because it seems pretty easy to understand what's going on here, right? These two have a one night stand. She ends up pregnant, and they end up somehow falling in love. And we're going to try to forget the fact. This is the unbelievable part that I mentioned at the beginning, Phil. Katherine Heigl is drop dead gorgeous. Seth Rogen, not so much, but somehow she ends up falling in love with him. He's a massive stoner. So, what do you think about that, as well as Katherine Heigl as his love interest here?
I think it works. I think Katherine Heigl does well in this movie. I don't think people remember because she shot up and got all of this fame off of Grey's Anatomy and a bunch of other movies and stuff she did. But I remember when she used to do like kind of the quirky movies early in her career. I think she did like a Disney movie at some point. She's done like made for TV stuff. So I think that she is good enough at not just being a serious actress, but being able to make fun of herself and being able to do uh, stuff like this where she can, fit into a cast that that is full of comedians and all these funny people and not look out of place.
Yeah, dude, I really enjoy her. And again, she may not be an actress that I go out of my way to find or to watch her stuff, but I really enjoy her because I think that, and I say she's drop dead gorgeous. I believe she is. But like, I don't know. Maybe I say this bit because of movies like this, but it seems like her beauty is accessible. In other words, she's not like, I don't know, classifying beauty. Who am I to say things like that? But you know what I mean? It's almost
Mhm.
like this movie makes her more approachable, not so much of a, like a not cover girl, but you know what I mean. Um,
Yeah.
Maybe it's
And
just these roles that make me feel that way.
yeah, I definitely think that she fit in well with Seth Rogen. I thought they had good chemistry. Um, we had the drama from this movie for the longest because she had that quote that she felt like the movie was a little sexist. I don't know if you remember that.
Mm.
And that has gone on for years, like just the
Wow.
back and forth between her apologizing for that comment and people asking Judd Apatow what he thinks about it, people asking Seth what he feels about it. Uh, it's weird, and I think her point of view was understandable, but of course, when things are turned into sound bites, it sounds more harsh than it really is.
Mm.
Because I think her point of view is simply, why do all the men in this movie get to be lovable and funny and all these other things, and the women are kind of like shrewd and mean killjoys?
Eh, well, we've kind of got one of those in this film, but I don't think that's Katherine Heigl's character.
Yeah, I mean, there are certain scenes in the movie where her character as well is just trying to be so serious and that she comes off a little bit mean. But I also think that you're looking at it through the lens of a pregnant woman, and I'm
True.
sure some women somewhere are like, all right, well, you think we're all just this mean and horrible and unbearable when we're pregnant, but I don't know. I
Yeah,
think it
I
fits the
agree.
story they're telling. But I didn't think it was a huge deal. I thought it was just, that's her opinion. She never, came off like she didn't enjoy working with Judd or Seth. And I think that's why she apologized, because I think she felt like after the response to it that people were trying to make it seem like she was personally attacking them, and she wasn't. It was just like her commentary in the movie itself.
And look, to be fair, I said at the beginning of this show, this is a romantic comedy, but this is a different sort of romantic comedy field. This is not cookie cutter, which I like. This is a rom com told from a male perspective with a
Mm-hmm.
male leading man. It's not exactly, yeah, it's a sweet feel good story, but it's not like I'm breathlessly in love with this person. That's not what this is. So, like, you know, it's got very likable, male actors, which makes this not just a, for lack of a better term, chick flick or whatever. Which again, I think it changes the tone here. I mean, and to be fair, the main two leads of this movie are the male leads of this film kind of are at the end of the film understand completely what their wives have been saying for the entire movie, like their other halves. Like, Seth's character changes, Paul Rudd's character changes to some degree. Like, the women end up being right. So I don't
I,
know.
I mean, listen, men, young men, boys, all listening to this, women are usually right. And I say this as somebody that has been in many relationships, has gotten in arguments with women. They're usually right. And even when they're not right, sometimes it's okay to just be like, you know what, you're right. Saves you a lot of
Saves,
time.
saves you time, saves you grief.
Yeah.
It'll put years back on your life. That's basically when I just say it. Whatever you want, whatever make you happy. That's fine.
Yeah.
So
But also they are usually right. They're usually smarter than us. They're usually more mature than us. This is what it is.
yeah, I can't argue that. I can't argue that. I've been known to kick my feet up on the couch and read comic books, and I am 50 years old. So yeah, who am I to? I'm never going to claim to be. I watch pro wrestling and thoroughly enjoy it. I've got I don't know how many pop vinyls all over my office, both offices now, and I'm so much into tech. I'm a nerd about tech. Yeah, I'm not going to question a woman's maturity level. It's not happening. So
Yeah, I mean, regardless if it's things that we like, I just the maturity that they have when they make their life decisions and everything.
right.
Usually they're better at these things than we are. Just it is what it is.
Oh man, yeah. I can't argue with that. Yeah, this is a fun movie, dude. It really is. We didn't mention that Seth Rogen is Ben Stone, and no, he's not the DA from Law and Order. I've always found it funny that's the same name as the original Michael Moriarty, the first DA from Law and Order. Katherine Heigl's character is Allison Scott. There you go. Let's talk about Paul Rudd, the future Ant-Man, who actually mentions Spider-Man in this film, which is nice little connect the dots. I enjoyed. Dude, Paul Rudd, I mean, I know you're not a Friends guy. Paul Rudd in the last season of Friends was great. And it's kind of the same character, very underplayed, very understated, but funny and witty. And that's what he is here. I mean, dude, he's the perfect fit in this movie. I mean, he fits next to Seth. They end up being friends. Their trip to Vegas is effing hilarious. I love it. What do you think about Paul Rudd in this movie?
I think he's great. I you could totally understand when watching this movie why he and Leslie got their spinoff with This Is 40. Um, they're just they work really well together. He's he's such a great supporting character in this thing.
Mhm.
His comedic timing at several points in this movie is just amazing. Um, one of the funniest scenes to me is when Ben tries to go get Allison back at the birthday party and he gets rejected and he comes in and he completely goes off on him and he just looks and he stares off and then walks out the door and starts singing happy birthday like none of that happened.
So good.
Hilarious every time I see it.
Feel bad for the guy too, man. He got his head ripped off. The scene in Vegas when they're high on was it acid they did or
It was
was it
mushrooms.
mushrooms?
Yeah, because that was when he yelled at him for at the birthday party. You
Yeah, that's
told
right.
her that I did mushrooms. Like it's one thing if I'm like a pot smoker, but now you got her thinking like I'm into crazy psychedelics.
Oh man, and like he's infatuated with the chairs in the
Yes,
room.
he's like going around and bringing out
Oh,
all the chairs.
it's so good, dude. Are you kidding me? That's so good. I really love that. He's like knocked out. He's got no socks or shoes on, but he still has his suit on. So good. Tom Clark's 6M podcast is sponsored in part by Radius Law Group. Every day, Radius helps individuals, families, small businesses, and nonprofit organizations throughout North Carolina, Florida, and Pennsylvania resolve their legal issues by providing effective legal counsel in the areas of estate planning, as well as elder law and Medicaid. Radius Law holds the radical belief that working with a lawyer can indeed be enjoyable. So give them a call at 1-800-519-5667 for more information and tell them that Tom Clark's 6M podcast sent you. Yeah, he's great in this, man. I'm a big fan of Paul Rudd. I think he's awesome, and not just because I'm a Marvel guy, kids. I think he's great. Um, I love the dynamic between him and Seth here too. Makes me wish they'd done more things together, man. Like, um, it's almost whenever we review movies that are not Marvel, I'm always in my head thinking about who could somebody be in the Marvel universe. Like Seth Rogen not being in a Guardians of the Galaxy film seems like a wasted opportunity to me. It just seems like he would have
Yeah,
fit so well.
yeah, I think he would fit really well with that cast.
Ah, man. Well, maybe one day we'll see the new Guardians team or the next Guardians team in a Marvel film. Maybe he'll be tagging along somewhere. Who knows? Um, Leslie Mann, you dude. Let's talk for a minute about she's Debbie, Pete's wife / Paul Rudd. Dude, talk about someone who is typecast,
Yes.
right? As the bitchy, domineering, I'm in control, it's my way or the highway wife. She plays this character constantly, man.
Yes.
Constantly.
Um,
So much so that she actually gets me frustrated watching her, but that's just because she's so good. What do you think
yeah.
about that?
Correct me if I'm wrong, but uh, aren't Leslie and Judd Apatow married?
I didn't know that, but if that's true, that would make a lot of sense, actually.
I think they are. Um, but before I jumped into my point, I was pretty sure they are, and I am googling it now. Yes, spouse just
He
Judd
is.
Apatow. Um,
Yep.
um, but I think she had a really good career resurgence doing the Judd Apatow movies, whether that be Knocked Up and Funny People, and then getting This Is 40. I do think you're right that she did get typecast as like the mean girlfriend from Big Daddy Up,
Mm-hmm.
but I think that Judd Apatow did a very good job of taking that and really giving her like more of a character. Like, she is that for most of this movie, but she does also have an understanding viewpoint several times throughout this movie when she's like she can't get in the club and she like has that breakdown about it.
Yeah.
Um, it's very understandable, and I
Yeah.
think that once you see her in This Is 40, she comes off as a much more relatable character. Um, I think she's great in this. I think that she is incredibly funny. I think that she does. I think she does play this stereotype character very well. Because like you said, it's hard to not get frustrated with just how over the top she is.
Yeah, for
But at the
sure.
same time, she is just so funny and entertaining. Um, yeah, I think she's very good in this movie. Again, if you're looking at this movie, it is clear as day why they decided to give them a spinoff.
What did you think of that film, by the way? How do you
I
think it
enjoy it.
compares to this?
I enjoy it. I like This Is 40 a lot. The only thing that I thought was missing was we didn't get a Seth and Katherine Heigl cameo.
I don't even remember if they ever really mentioned them in the movie.
Yeah. Um, but yeah, no, when you go back and watch it, like all the same characters, like we see younger Sadie and their youngest.
Right.
Yeah, I really like This Is 40. And I think it's just because you have those two actors as the leads for it, and it works.
And plus, their two daughters play her children in this movie.
Ah,
There you go.
didn't know that.
So, a bit of trivia: Anne Hathaway was originally cast in the role of Allison, but dropped out due to creative reasons.
Hmm.
Maybe because the film is too sexist. I'm kidding. Uh, so, attributed to Hathaway's disagreement with plans to use real footage of a woman giving birth. I don't know why that matters. Jennifer Love Hewitt and Kate Bosworth auditioned for the part after Hathaway dropped out. They ended up losing to Katherine Heigl. Jennifer Love Hewitt, I think, would have been an interesting choice, but not the same. Jennifer Love Hewitt is very, in my opinion, very, small town, hometown girl kind of roles that she's done before.
Yeah.
Kate Bosworth, I think, would have been a fine fit, but I
Yeah.
thought Heigl did well.
I think what makes Katherine Heigl work so well in this movie is that she is believable in the role. She is very she fits in with all these characters well. It'd have been hard to not see Jennifer Love Hewitt as Jennifer Love Hewitt in this movie
Mm-hmm.
because at this point, like her name and her presence, like kind of supersedes any character that she plays. It's like, oh, this is Jennifer Love Hewitt in this movie.
Yeah. Yeah, good call. Good call. It happens. Yeah. A lot of actors go through that where no matter what they do, that you see the actor, you don't see the role they're playing for sure.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I get that. Let's talk about, we're diving into Ben's friends now. Let's talk about Jason Segel, who, if you've ever seen How I Married Your Mother, that's where he got his break, basically. And, good show. And man, he's really come into his own now. He's one of those guys that, pops up in things, and he's got his own streamer now as well. And in this movie, he's such the straight man. He's still funny. He's got great dialogue, but he's such a straight man, and he is constantly hitting on Debbie, and she really likes it through this whole movie. Man, what about Jason Segel as Jason?
Yeah. Him hitting on all these women, it's just hilarious. And the fact that he shows up at This Is 40 as well, and he's still doing it, it's just hilarious. He has the scenes in This Is 40 with Megan Fox. He's doing the Bodies by Jason thing. It's hilarious.
God,
Um,
forgotten that.
yeah, he's very funny in this. When he slams the door on Paul Rudd, it's hilarious. Are you Debbie's husband? Yeah, just slams the door.
Yeah. Makes a point to grab the door and just not even look. He just looks so disappointed. Like, yeah, I'm shutting this. That's so good. Like, he's borderline uncomfortable when he talks to her, but like she doesn't take it that way at all. Uh, it's very funny. I really like that a lot. Um, let's also talk about, and I got to bring him up just because the jokes are so good. Martin Starr as Martin. uh, he's got the deal, and like if he grows his hair and his beard and doesn't shave or get a haircut for a year, that Jason Segel's character Jason will pay his rent every month. Um, and then we don't know until the end what Martin will owe him, which was nothing. Phil, the payoff to that was nothing, but that's what made it funny. Because what was it he had to say? He had to say Jason is the master.
Yes.
uh, Martin Starr was also in Superbad. Dude, the jokes around him when he looks like he's high as a kite, stoned out of his mind, and the jokes together, so good, man. So good. I love this, actually.
Yeah. No, all of the jokes about Martin throughout this movie are hilarious. He's just like at one point he's like, I didn't know that this was gonna be what it was. I thought he was like, nope, that's part of the deal. And he's just constantly getting like just haranguing this entire movie. So funny.
Yeah.
His facial expressions every time, just that blank stare he has on his face. I think Jason Segel he calls him. He looks like a wax figure with a dumb look on his face. But he does. He just has that dumb. He has like that dazed stare every time somebody makes a joke about him, and it's so funny.
Oh, it's so good. Yeah, they come. Jason comes to the door with pink eye, and he's like, "Oh, you have it too." He's like, "No, I'm just really, really high." That's so good, man. Oh man, that's awesome. I love that so much. Yeah, he's let's see, I'm going back to the club scene. What is it? Ben's character or Ben? He says one of the Jonah says, "How was Burning Man this year?" And oh, let's see. I'm just trying to go through the jokes. God, this is such good stuff.
What doesn't Jonah call him? And Jonah is just Jonah in this movie.
He is. That's funny too, right?
Just Jonah call him Stone Martin Scorsese.
Yes. Oh, yeah. I mean, dude, they start ripping on him immediately.
Yes.
Immediately. He's barely grown. I mean, his beard's there, but it's fine. And immediately they start ripping on him.
Yeah.
So good. He says, "You stay here." Why? I said, "Because your face looks like a vagina." Jonah comes up and says, "You still partying?" He says, "Hey, Crockett, you still partying with Tubbs these days?" Come on, man. I'm getting it from all angles over here. I don't like it anymore. He says, "No, I don't either." He said, "Was it weird when you changed your name from Cat Stevens to Yusuf Islam?" Which is good. He's like, yeah, it was. Yeah, I got to take off. So he says, "See you, Scorsese on coke." Oh, man. It's good. And then he has to come up and do the Chewbacca noise.
Oh, Barenthal. Yeah.
Yeah. So good. So good. Yeah, Martin Starr, very understated here, but he's, again, the beard and the hair thing is all worth it. Jonah Hill as Jonah, go figure. Not much to say about Jonah here. He's funny as always. His brand of comedy I really like. He's not the uptight, angry dude that he was in Superbad, where he's basically mad through the whole movie and yelling the whole time, which he's great at that as well, but he's excellent here too. This is such a Judd Apatow movie. Like, if you didn't know who wrote and directed this thing, you would know already, for sure. And Jay Baruchel as Jay. I don't know if you've seen him lately, but man, he's changed. Like, these kids grow up, Phil, these crazy kids. And yeah, it's weird seeing him now. And then Charlene Yee as Jody.
Wait, he looks different. What's going on?
Yeah, no, yeah, like I don't know. He's just older. He's just older.
Yeah, I mean, he is, isn't he? He's he's got to be close to 40 by now, if
Yeah,
not
well,
40.
see, I need the actors that in movies that I enjoy to stay that age. Like, I really need that to happen.
Yeah, let's
And
look
none
this
of
up.
them are playing along yet, except Tom Cruise. He's the only one that's played along.
Yeah, he's 41. Yeah, that makes sense.
You said 21, right? Cool. That's what I need to hear.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I've seen him in a bunch of his movies where he's the leading role. He gets the leading role. Of course, cannot leave out him being alongside Nicolas Cage in Sorcerer's Apprentice.
Yeah.
He was in the movie. She's out of his league. He's done all that voice acting. Yeah, he's been kind of everywhere.
Kevin Sadusky in Tropic Thunder. Excellent role.
Yeah. Yes.
Excellent role. We've done, by the way, that's in the archives, kids. Go look that up. Fun episode. He was in the RoboCop remake in 2014. That was a tough watch. Not a terrible movie, but yeah, somewhat of a tough watch. But yeah, I like him a lot, actually. I always have. He's very briefly in Night at the Museum, too. Charlene Yee as Martin's girlfriend, Jody, who's been in a lot of stuff. Let's see, what is it that I basically know her from? She's done some voice work. Steven Universe, the movie. We Bear Bears, she's in that. Her voice is very distinctive. She was in This Is 40 also. She reprises her role as Jody. Yeah. So we have to also mention the late, great Harold Ramis, who is pitch perfect as Seth Rogen's dad in this movie. They kind of look similar. Dude, he's pitch perfect. I mean, in the small bit he had, he's great. He's just great. Just seemed like, man, if that was my dad, that'd be great because he's just like the best dude. So I love that he was in this also.
Yeah, my eyes immediately lit up when I remembered he was in the movie,
Yeah.
and they had the scene where they had lunch, and he just I don't know, man. He just has this warmth as his dad that is I don't know, man. You just couldn't. I don't know, man. You couldn't force it. But I think that's just Harold Ramis. Like I think that having him in this with all these other comedians and having him kind of be this elder statesman that is giving advice to another comedian makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, none of that felt like it was even written, did it? It all felt like it was riffed.
Yeah, almost did. Even their like conversation on the phone when he's just like, I don't know what to tell you. Like I've been divorced 3 times.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. And you're like, how is this grown man child, this 23-year-old is what they said for the film. 23-year-old, this guy's kid. Like, how's that possible when the dad seems so put together? I think we've all probably at one time or another known a Ben Stone. Do you have a friend or two that had just, basically done the same thing now since when they were teenagers, won't grow up? You know,
Yeah, I think we all do. We all
yeah,
know a guy or a handful of guys that are like that.
yeah. Just, and I love that scene where she's like, he's playing with her kids. And she says, well, how old is he? And she says 23. He says, he looks 33. And I'm like, God, he does look 33. Like, I'm just saying. Um, but yeah, like Step Brothers capitalizes on that, right? The entire Step Brothers film was about never cutting the cord and never growing up and never, staying the same thing today that you are when you were a teenager. Like I personally know people who do the same today as they were when they were 20. I'm like, how have you not, even your worldview hasn't changed? How have you been living in sheltered all these years? Like, how have you not changed in 20 years? It's insane. What do you think about the way his character matures? Because there were moments in this movie when I thought, well, this film's going to end with these two not together, because it really didn't feel like they were meant to be at all. It just felt like this is going to be way much more work than this character is going to be able to do. Like, I didn't just assume this is going to have a happy ending because it's a comedy. What do you think about his character arc in this movie?
I thought it was I thought it was believable. It never felt like she was into him because he was like this great looking guy or anything like that. I think he always won her over by just being himself.
Hmm.
And so I really buy into the idea that his way of eventually getting out of the main conflict in the movie and getting her back is by just being himself and just kind of growing up.
Yeah, it's pretty good. I really enjoy this movie. I mean, for a lot of the reasons that we've already talked about, but the dynamics between these characters as well. What about the bit? And we didn't talk about this cast either. Chris and Wig is in this movie, and we also didn't mention. And now I'm blanking on his name. He's her producer for E.
Oh, Tudyk.
Yes, Alan Tudyk is here. Those two together, I don't know how you get through that scene with Chris and Wig doing that little side and snapping on her the way she's doing, and that little side glance. And Alan Tudyk's character is like never acknowledging that she's snapping on this girl in front of him. Like, dude, I thought Kristen Wiig was great in this movie.
Yeah, I thought she was great. I thought Alan was also funny in his scenes where he's her boss and he's like not telling her to lose weight, but he's just like, yeah, just tighten it up. Just
Tighten it up. Yeah.
tighten it up. And he just keeps doing the same hand gesture when he's saying it.
It's like, you mean lose weight? She goes, well, we can't tell you that legally.
Yeah, just
Can't
write
tell
down
you
this
that.
number that get on the scale, write
Yeah.
down a number for your weight, and just just subtract 20 pounds from it, and
Yeah.
that's where we want you to be. We can't tell you to lose weight.
Yeah, they give her the TV gig. It's like, oh, it's a lot of pressure, a lot of hard work. Yeah. Oof, it's gonna be tough. She keeps doing that stuff. I'm like, my God, it's so good. Those two together are good. And then, of course, because she's interviewing celebrities, she gets some folks on the red carpet. And Steve Carell's kind of made to be the butt of the joke. I thought that scene was good too.
That yeah, he's like trying to slowly walk away, and he's like looking. He keeps looking back, like
They're
he keeps
calling me.
like this sheepish look on his face, and she's just like, come on, don't be an asshole. And
Right.
he's like, I'm not.
I'm not. So yeah.
Yeah, no, that's great. Yeah, all of the comedians that he gets in this thing, because that's kind of what Judd Apatow does now, is he kind of does the Sandler thing of getting all of his funny friends in movies,
Yeah.
and yeah, the all of the comedians in this are amazing. I do like the fact that it's kind of in a real world setting of her um, being an entertainment reporter for E, and how she has to actually like report on things like the Spider-Man thing, and um, it's weird looking at it now today, and it's just weird looking at it now that like they're doing all the reporting around Spider-Man 3, and then Paul Judd like is actually going to see Spider-Man, and then she has the interview early on when she realizes she's pregnant, and why am I drawing a blank on who she
James
interviewed?
Franco.
James Franco. She was interviewing
Yeah.
James Franco, and he's freaking out because she's throwing up. Um,
He says, if this one of those effing joke shows, I'm not into it, which is a
yeah,
great line.
yeah,
And dude, we didn't mention Bill Hader. I'd forgotten Bill Hader is in this movie.
he is. He works as like her editor, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and his when when he's ragging on her for throwing up, it's funny. He's like, "Yeah, I think you might be pregnant," and she's like, "No."
He says, look how sweaty you are. You look like Dom DeLuise.
Yeah,
Like what?
you look like Jabba the Hutt when he's dying.
Yeah. John, he's done. Yeah. And he gets on the phone. And he's like, yeah. It's like, I was just telling her, I think she's pregnant. Like she's got this look on her face, like she just realized she's pregnant. Oh, it's so good. Two Nations Under Ted, a Ted Lasso podcast, tackles one of the most popular and critically acclaimed series of our time, bringing together three hosts from two different parts of the world. Two Nations reviews all 3 seasons of Ted Lasso, 34 episodes total, with wrap-up episodes coming at the end of each season. Follow the show on social media at Two Nations Pod, and be sure to subscribe and download on all the major platforms. Just look us up, Two Nations Podcast. So, I think, look, it to me anyway, the degree of difficulty trying to make this into a true romantic comedy, and not like basically a dude's movie passed off as a romantic comedy, to me means this movie doesn't work. But I think it's got the right balance of you got the bro thing happening, and you got these guys who are best friends, and then you've also got the female's perspective, which again is the right balance. I think that's why this movie works. I don't think it's too much of one and not enough of the other. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, I think it fits the right balance of like I said, being a rom com, but also getting men to like it as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, put Seth Rogen in it. Men are going to go see it because he's just funny. There is, and I didn't know this actually till today, there's alleged copyright infringement. A Canadian author, Rebecca Eckler, wrote in Maclean's magazine about the similarities between the movie and her book, Knocked Up, Confessions of a Hip Mother to Be, which was released in the U.S. in March 2005. She pursued legal action against Apatow and Universal Pictures based on copyright infringement. In a public statement, Apatow said, quote, anyone who reads the book and sees the movie will instantly know that they are two very different stories about a common experience, end quote. And then there was another author who said the same thing, similarities between the film and her novel, Playing House. I mean, Phil, this movie could resemble any number of books, to be honest with you.
I mean, it's a it's a very common premise.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I think the movie handled it in a unique enough way, but in real life, it's a very common thing that happens to people.
Yeah, and the quote you were talking about earlier from Heigl, she called the movie a little sexist, claiming that the film paints the women as shrews, as humorless and uptight, and it paints the men as lovable, goofy, fun-loving guys. But in the end, I respond with, yes, but in the end, the women are right and the men are wrong. I mean, if you're going to get upset about how the movie goes until that point, fine. But like the end brings it back around. Yeah, I don't know. In response, Apatow did not deny the validity of her accusation, saying, I'm just shocked that Heigl used the word shrew. I mean, what is this, the 1600s? Which is a great comeback. Um, he also said the characters of the film are sexist at times, but it's really about immature people who are afraid of women and relationships and learn to grow up. That Phil should have if we had led with that, the episode would be over. This film is about immature people who are afraid of women and learn to grow up. It's perfect. You're right. Her comments did blow up. Yikes.
Yeah, I don't. I know that the Heigl quote was still out there, and I know that people kept bringing it up. Like I said, I think that people just I don't want to say overreacted to her comments, but I think in a day and age of people taking sound bites, I think that it just got a little overblown.
Mhm.
And she's mentioned how it was hard on her because she had to keep talking about it, and she felt like she apologized too much because then it made it seem like it was more of a severe issue. I don't know. It's just one of those things where I'm surprised that it lasted this long.
Yeah, it seems a little ridiculous. I mean, yeah, I don't know. Man, there's a bunch of people that climbed onto that as well. Here's a reporter saying that her comments were uninspiring, noting Knocked Up was the culminating artifact in what had become the dominant romantic comedy trend of the past several years, the slovenly hipster and the female straight arrow. Wow, she's paid to write, you can tell. I'm just saying. The Guardian noted that Heigl's comments provoked quite a backlash, and Heigl was described as ungrateful and a traitor. In the wake of mounting accusations of sexism, director Judd Apatow discussed ways he might develop more authentic female characters. Phil, at the end of the day, you're a director. You're a writer slash director slash producer. You're going to write slash direct slash produce from your own vantage point. It does not mean you intend necessarily to offend anyone, but you're writing from your perspective, or at least your take on the subject that you're writing about. Like, I don't know how I feel about that. Like, let's go after the director. Let's say that his movies are X, Y, and Z. I guess there's merit to that based on who we're talking about, but it kind of seems a little silly to me that we're talking about that. Sexism.
I mean, I think there are fair criticisms when it comes to sexism, but I do think this idea that everything should be made for everyone, and everything has to speak to everybody's vantage point is just unrealistic.
Mm-hmm. Oh, here's an interesting comeback. Here I am dredging it up after all these years. In July 2009, while promoting their film Funny People, Apatow and Rogen appeared on The Howard Stern Show and defended the work in Knocked Up, disagreeing with the position Heigl had stated. Rogen pointed to Heigl's work in the film The Ugly Truth to illustrate his point. He said, I hear there's a scene where she's wearing underwear with a vibrator in it, so I'd love to see if that is uplifting for women.
Yikes.
Man, this went on for a long time. Apatow remarked on Heigl's criticism, stating that he had expected an apology from Heigl. You would think at some point I'd get a call saying she was sorry, that she was tired, and then the call never comes. Man, this went on for a long time.
Yikes.
Uh, yeah, again in 2016, Rogan on the Howard Stern Show says he felt hurt and somewhat betrayed back then by Heigl's comments. He went on to talk about what a great rapport they had on set while working together. And at the same time, he had even envisioned them making many more movies with her. And apparently, I guess, Phil, this is why it didn't happen.
Yeah. Then he made another movie with her, if I remember correctly. I can't remember.
Yeah, he did. It was the one where she was wasn't she a politician, I think?
Yes, I think so.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. I don't know. I think it could have been handled a lot better on both sides. I mean, even
Sure.
that what he said about the ugly truth was just kind of like, all right, did you really need to do all that?
Right.
I mean, it's just her. It's just her. Like I said, her commentary on the movie. It's her perspective. I didn't think it was that big of a deal.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think it's terrible what she said. I think maybe the fact maybe she kept saying it. I don't know. It's almost like if you make your point one time, maybe you can just kind of leave it alone. I don't know. I don't know. I won't speak for her. Yeah, I honestly, dude, until you said it, I had no idea there was even some kind of thing with that at all.
Yeah, that's why. That's I'm shocked once you looked it up and you saw how long this has been going on. This has been going on for years.
See, there was Life as We Know It. That's not it. Killers is not it. Maybe that's an. Wasn't that Charlize Theron that was the actress in that movie?
Oh, maybe so. I don't know why I thought they did something else together.
I honestly, I thought you were right. I'm not going to sit here and say that I don't that I completely disagree with her. I can't say that I completely disagree. Like I kind of see where she's coming from to a certain degree, honestly.
Yeah, I can see her point, but I also can see how the way she phrased it, they might have gotten defensive and thought it was an attack on them personally, especially Judd, because this is his creation.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, I think that it definitely got blown way out of proportion.
Yeah, for sure. The interview was in 2014 with him and Franco.
Yikes! Not very great that that was the guy that he was sitting next to when he said that. Yeesh.
Oh yeah. Oh, that's right. Yeah. And they, I mean, the last time I read anything about this, that they hadn't spoken a long time because of what the things that happened with Franco. So yeah, shame. Well, we did get a sequel to this. Is it good that we just got a spinoff and not a direct sequel? You think?
I don't think it needed a direct sequel because I think we've basically wrapped up the main conflict of this movie. I mean,
Hmm.
yeah, you can get back into it with them as possibly a married couple or possibly a couple that didn't work out. Maybe. I don't know. I think I don't think you have a real reason to keep going back to it. It might be something interesting to go back to later on. All right, something would be an interesting premise for a movie is their kid is a teenager now and them trying to like get along and raise a
Ooh.
teenager.
If for nothing else, to see where his friends are now.
Yeah, yeah. Oh my God, one of the funniest things is them realizing this idea they have all movies already been done, and they find out about Mr. Skins, and they're just like, "What do you mean, Mr. Skins?" And he keeps doing the face like they're supposed to recognize like the Mr. Skins logo, and then they look it up and they're like, "Oh my God, we've wasted 19 months."
Man, we didn't even talk about that being a plot point in this movie. And he tells the story about getting hit by what did he get hit by in high school? A mail truck.
Yeah, a post office truck or something like that.
And he got a payout of 18 grand. He's like, I got like $900 left. I figured that'd be at least a couple of years.
Yeah, and then she sees that bank statement in his house, and he's got like $115 in his bank account or something like that.
Yeah. Oh my God, that's so good. Let's see. Well, kids, that is essentially knocked up. Not your typical rom com, depending on which point of view is. You may or may not agree with that statement. Not sure. But do you think there'll always be a spot for Judd Apatow humor? Or do you think in 2023 we have moved past that? Do you think it can still work? Would it have to be toned down? Would it have to change? I mean, what do you think now?
I think he definitely carved his niche, and I think that he had a very successful run. I don't know if I would say that there is no more room for his type of humor. I think that it can still work. Of course, he's got to evolve with time. I don't know what is the last successful Judd Apatow movie.
That's a
Um,
great question.
but he had an incredible run.
He really did.
I'm trying to think off the top of my head, what is his last big movie?
I think his last project was in 2021, 2022, called The Bubble. I've never heard of
Interesting
this.
choice.
Karen Gillian's in it. Fred Armisen's in it. The King of Staten Island was 2020. I'm not a huge Pete Davidson fan. And to be honest with you, I don't really hate the guy for any particular reason either.
Last Judd Apatow movie that I watched, probably the Amy Schumer movie, right?
Trainwreck in 2015.
Yeah, that's probably the last one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean that one kind of flips the dynamic on its head. Is that you've got the woman that's kind of like this bungling person that has to try and grow up and keep the man that's kind of like the straight laced character, which Bill Hader in that movie. So it kind of flips the dynamic around.
Yeah, that's fair. That's definitely different. I can't say I'm a massive Amy Schumer fan.
Yeah. Uh, her comedy itself can be hit or miss, but I thought that movie was funny.
Speaking of copyright infringement, she's had comics come after her before, basically saying that she flat out stole their bits.
Wow.
Um, yeah. I don't. I think it's comics plural. I think more than one has come at her for things, which is, that's kind of a big deal. But I've also heard other comics, well-known comics, kind of stand up for her and have her back. So I don't know. Hard to know what's real and what's not with that, I suppose.
Yeah, I don't know. I hadn't heard that, but well, actually, yeah, I did. I had heard that before that she got sued. But she's one of those comedians, kind of like Carlos Mencia, where I've also heard that guys have come after him for the same reason.
Interesting. I think we'll just spend the rest of the show talking about people we don't care for too much. No, I'm kidding. We've never really done that. I mean, we've done DC episodes, but listen to me, kids. You disagree. That means you're a massive Zack Snyder fan, which already means you got more problems than I can help you with. I mean, we can't perform miracles here. We're not making people walk on water or anything. Let's be honest. We're only so powerful here on the 6M. I'm sure this won't be the last time we visit a Seth Rogen enterprise or a product. So, what do you think about Seth Rogen as an actor, in your opinion? Do you think he's evolved? Do you think he's progressed? Is he still in that rut of playing sort of the same character? Do you think he's improved over the years? I mean, where do you think he is in terms of level of ability at this point in his career?
I think he's very good in this movie. I think that he's done things over the last few years that shows that he does have really good acting chops as well.
Mm-hmm.
I think that he's I think that he's kind of gotten past that typecast of just being there to just be naturally funny and improv. Because I think that's the other thing people throw at Judd Apatow movies a lot is that he allows his actors to ad lib a lot and then he kind of edits. Which you can tell if you watch enough Judd Apatow movies because there are definitely times where it feels like the joke is going too long. But I think he's kind of gotten past that criticism that he's just a comedian that has been in a bunch of big budget movies.
Mm-hmm. Well, there you go, folks. There is Knocked Up. Go enjoy the romantic sexist comedy. Kidding. You'll love it. It's really good. Phil, let's take this thing home. Give me your last word on Knocked Up.
I think it's great. I think that it is a very relatable movie. I think that it is very funny. It has a lot of heart to it. Has a great cast. And, it managed to give us enough characters to spin off into a second movie. Can't beat that.
Very true. Very true. We'll see what happens here, folks. But I'll tell you, don't quote me on this. I don't know this for 100% fact because I don't know enough about his interviews to really know the answer to this. But it always feels as though he wants to do something comic book related. I mean, he did the Green Hornet, and he's done other things like his producer and whatnot. So, we'll see if he ever ends up in the MCU. I still think it'd be a good fit if they could find the right vehicle for him. Don't know if he'd have to be the leading man, but maybe just a character I think would probably be fine with him. So we'll see what happens. I like to see my favorite people in the MCU just because I'm just such an MCU fan. So there you go. But like we said, check out the film. It's worth watching. We'll be covering more Seth Rogen stuff here in the very near future. And for now, that is Knocked Up. Hey, thanks for listening to the show. Check out our social media on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at 6M Podcast. We'll see you next time.